Welcome to Q&A. We're going to have today Chris from Truly Tropical Mangoes on. And please post all your questions. We're really excited to have Chris as a guest on. She's just signing on now, so she'll be a moment. And yes, this is exciting. Chris just announced today, and I just announced Florida Mango Festival we'll be having. Chris will tell you a little about that as well. June 29th in West Palm Beach. It's a Sunday. It's going to be a blast. Chris just put a video about it, and I'm going to be putting a video about it in today probably. But exciting things that are happening. But I'm really exciting, and when I was making my video for the Florida Mango Fest, I was telling everybody on the video, I grew up in New York, and I didn't know a lot about mangoes at all. I just knew there was one variety. And then when I came down here, my friend John Kohler, who was visiting me one day, came home. Well, he was staying with me. He came to my house with a bunch of mangoes that were called lemon meringue mangoes. And I'm saying, where did you get these? And he told me Truly Tropical. And I was there like the next day buying. Between me and John, we must have bought all she had. We had cases in the house here, and I learned about the Zill mangoes, and I met Alex at Tropical Acres, and the rest is mango history. But today we're going to have Chris. I'm so excited because I've done a lot of live Q&As, and today Chris is going to be on to do a live Q&A with us. And Chris, like me, just has a passion for doing things with in tune with nature, and she loves to be up early and sleeping at night. And so do I, but I can't get to sleep early because I'm so busy. But it's my goal, and I'm so thrilled when Chris said, "Can we do this in the daytime instead of nighttime?" I said, "I don't know how many people are going to join us, but we can certainly try." And here we are in the daytime, and many of you are online, so that's exciting. And Chris is just joining us now. So,
Should be
Chris,
connected.
can you hear us?
Yes, we definitely can. Shannon is here with me. He's
Hello, Shannon.
helps out a lot at the farm, and I thought that he probably could interject a different perspective every once in a while and make a more complete answer to some of the questions. So we're ready.
That is great. The only request that I have, everything's good. Everybody post your questions. This is going to be good. But the only thing is, has your Zoom, you have a background on blur
Oh
and
yeah.
or a green
Hold on.
screen, and you have a beautiful farm, and I think it's beautiful there. So can you shut that blur off so we could just
Yeah, give me
uh,
just a second.
yeah. And also, if anyone wants to get your questions answered first, this will be limited to a shorter time here today. A super chat is open. So keep that in mind if you want to get your questions answered first. So, Chris's website, I'll put it below the video. It's already there, is Truly Tropical, also known as the Mango Place. Is it .org or .com?
.com.
.com.
Themangoplace.com, and that's our website, and we have like a lot of information on the website. And then of course we also have Truly Tropical YouTube videos.
Chris, you're turning the mango world upside down with these new varieties, and everyone's going to have questions about them. So we're going to get started right now with these. But before we get started, Chris, is there anything you want to say? I know you put a video out today, a great video you and Shane put today out about the Mango Festival, the Florida Mango Festival. Really good job. It inspired me to just go make one right before this that I'm going to be posting. But you want to say anything about that real quick?
Well, it's going to be a great festival, and if anybody has even the slightest interest in mangoes, that's the place to be. That's June 29th, and there's just going to be all sorts of vendors, but the vendors are not the big story as far as I'm concerned, because it's the people from all sorts of backgrounds that are very excited about mangoes. And then we have the really highly regarded speakers, mango speakers that are going to be arranged. And so, they're not yet committed to which time slot and all that kind of thing, but it's going to be a great festival. So I encourage everybody to sign up.
Yes, details will be coming soon, everybody, but mark that date on your calendar, June 29th, Sunday, and make plans to be in West Palm Beach, downtown West Palm Beach. And the great thing is it's going to be indoors. So you might actually, I know many of you have been watching Chris's videos for a long time. Since it's indoors, you might actually get to see it without sunglasses at this event. So come on down and say hi to her.
Bridge too far.
Okay, well, you'll get to meet her, which is wonderful. So let's get into the questions here right now. And Chris does do consultations and takes questions besides just everything that's here. And if you have anything special, just contact her through a website if you want to talk to her about more extensively. First question is, will you be shipping trees this year? And if so, will you be taking grafted requests?
Well, we will probably actually ship the some of the 1 gallon plants because that should be a fairly easy plant to arrive alive, and also the shipping costs should be fairly minimal. And so we're definitely looking into that and almost there as far as offering that as an alternative. The bigger plants, there's a lot of people I know in California that want very large trees, and we have them. That is a little bit more involved because of getting inspections and that sort of thing. And then if you have a big tree, the transportation of that. But it seems like we're pretty well set for starting to ship 1 gallon trees sometime soon.
Wonderful, wonderful. The next question is can Chris name her top 3 Indian mangoes?
Ooh. Man, no matter what I say, I'm gonna like alienate some of the
Yeah,
people
Chris
from
doesn't
India.
like to be committal. She doesn't like to commit. So
Well, there's so many very good Indian varieties. Excellent. Yeah, I would say Kesar is very high on my list. I've got I mean I enjoy Neelams, but a lot, but that is a fairly small mango. But it's got a nice, very nice flavor to it, and it does come later in the season, which is always lovely. Do you have some special ones, Shannon?
not that just kind of come to mind. I have a balanced flavor palette for the resin. So if it's got like Neelam is hit or miss for me. So like if it's not too resinous, I like it, but Neelam can kind of tip over the scale for me. So I'm kind of amongst half the Americans that don't love resin. So it might be not the greatest question for me.
Okay, so we'll move on from that.
Sorry.
Okay. I love Indian mangoes and good question. Okay, next question is Chris's USDA hemp cigar flowering?
Uh, they've started to flower. Yes, actually, the one tree that I see all of the time, it flowered already, lost the first bloom, as many of the varieties did this year, and it is pushing out some of the second bloom. We are hoping for a good year for that because it's a really nice mango.
It was really in high demand last year at the gate when we had them kind of all come at once. So people were really excited to get that variety. And then we got kind of an onslaught of requests for trees after people were able to taste the fruit from the USDA hemp cigar.
Very nice. Very nice. All right. Can Chris give an update of her lemonish tree as far as flowering and fruit set this year? Also, our 1 gallon lemonish trees still have a March pickup date.
Yeah, it does seem like the people who did pre-order the 1 gallon lemon ash will be able to pick them up in March. It looks pretty good for that. I haven't looked at all of them, and so there might be some that don't quite meet our height standard yet. But we're hoping that we get all of those pre-orders taken care of, and that will happen before anything else happens with the lemon ash. The people who pre-ordered get top billing kind of thing. Those are will be taken care of first.
Wonderful. Besides the
What are you
lemon,
saying about the base tree, how it's doing?
Oh
this
yeah,
year?
yeah. I that was like mixed in there.
Yep, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So thank you, Shannon, for keeping me on track. But yes, it's a little bit early to tell how the lemon ash is setting fruit. It just recently flowered and has too many fruit on some of the panicles to hold. So it can't really give you an estimate on that. It seems like a fairly good bet that we will have lemon-ash fruit. I just don't know I can't estimate a quantity at this point.
Is it an
And
early,
time of
mid,
the-
or late season?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay, you guys are like on the same
Uh-huh.
wavelength, so that's great. Yeah, it's pretty much a mid-season.
I was going to say mid late.
Yeah,
Because it seemed like it came a little after like lemon zest.
yeah, there's an overlap. There's the end of lemon zest season is we start having lemon-ash. And so you get to, if you're really on top of things, you could compare and contrast those two varieties because they do have about 2 weeks, at least last year it had 2 weeks of having both of those varieties available.
Now, besides that one, you have several other new varieties, and my friend Matthew was telling me another one of the new varieties is the best mangoes he's ever tasting. What's some of the names of the other new varieties that you have available for people, and some of the ones that are new that aren't available?
Well, the best ones that I've ever tasted isn't available yet. So I'll let her answer the question first, and I'll tell you about the one I think is the best citrus flavored mango I've ever tasted.
Yeah, it's probably the same he's talking about.
Yeah. Well, they said available to people.
Yeah, the Monty should be available, and that's been a very popular mango. We actually will have possibly 10 new varieties this coming season. Things that have never flowered before seem to be holding fruit, but you never want to,
And that's to
forecast.
taste, right? That's not to sell. That's just to taste for the first
Well,
time.
yeah, that definitely would not be, there would not be any plants available for that because we have like a single tree in the ground.
Yeah.
I always like to taste fruit from a tree that has never produced fruit before. It's like it could be really bad. Sometimes they are like that, but it's like I just like to taste them, whether they're good or bad. It's just really sort of a thing with me. So
And how would you characterize the taste of Monty, since it's something that a lot of people haven't had?
yeah, it's very similar to Dupuis Saigon, except for the tree is
No
much
fiber.
smaller.
Yeah,
It's
smaller
no
tree.
fiber, and it's just got like a very similar flavor to that, and but yeah, more compact, very productive. Our Dupuis Saigon is not as productive as the Monty is, and the Dupuis Saigon is a much larger tree.
Yeah, and it has really good flavor. So people that like the Dupuis that don't like the fiber and the size of the tree, it's kind of a good.
Yeah, it's got a lot of pluses. So
It wasn't the Monty that my friend he was talking about, but what are some other new ones from last year that people got to taste?
Well, I mean, I'll comment if it's okay. So there,
It's much more talkative.
I'm more talkative. So there is a variety that was tasted the last at the desk here, and we sold a few of last year called 33. It's just got a number right now. And what I find exciting about it's a very large, classic flavored mango, very juicy, and it is at least last year it produced in a similar time frame as Kit. And Kit is kind of the hands down winner for latest variety, reputable or constant producer, large fruit. If 33 turns out to be regularly producing at the same time as Kit, I would rather have a 33 than a Kit.
Well, I would like to have both.
I didn't say well, you couldn't, but yeah.
But the 33 people were just buying that up as soon as they heard about it. Like it didn't matter if it was a factory second or not.
Yeah.
It was like that was a very popular variety. So I looked at the tree recently, and it looks like it'll be a pretty good year this year too. So crossing our fingers on that one.
And then of course you have lemon-ash, which I think is probably the most populated one.
I think that Paul is just about ready to ask another
No,
question.
no.
Okay.
There are some
well,
other.
I think he was just taking notes and stuff. So my favorite of all of Chris's varieties is one that's got an interesting name.
Well, it's going to be changed.
It is going to be changed. Okay. So it's currently called Henshin, right? Did I pronounce it
Tension,
right?
that's the one. That's the
I
one
think
my
it's
friend
Hudson.
said.
Puncheon. Yeah.
Punch, and that's the one that my friend said was the best mangoes he's ever tasted in his life.
Yeah, yeah. Chris and I did a video with all the citrus flavored ones that she has that include the lemon ash and this one, and it's just crazy good. I mean, you can go back and watch that tasting video where he tasted it live, but I didn't know of its existence when Chris kind of pulled it out of her hat and said, "Let's try this one." You know, I kind of likened it to a combination of the flavors of orange sherbet and lemon meringue. It's super rich. It's got a creaminess to it. It's a flavor, not a texture. We went back and forth about that, but there's a creaminess to
Yeah, a lot
the
of
fruit.
people taste like a tangerine flavor in it.
That's a good, yeah, because it's
Yeah.
the orange and the lemon from the other two. Yeah, it's more of like a tangerine.
What's the
It's just
parenting on it?
amazing.
What's the parenting on it?
Uh, I don't
Or
generally
the-
keep track of the parentage,
Okay.
so I'm not sure, like who pollinated what and that kind of thing.
Was it thinking it might be related to one of the like lemon zest,
Oh yeah,
lemon
it's
meringue,
they
lemon
all
orange?
all of those citrus flavored ones come from the popipole, which is
Okay,
this lemon.
is that
meringue.
one going to be available anytime soon? And why are you
Yes,
changing the
Chris.
name?
Is that one going to be available?
It's one of those that we don't have a lot to graft from. It's just a single tree, and so I'm not sure when that's going to come out, but we will definitely make an announcement when that becomes available because a lot of people have expressed an interest in that.
But
Why
to
you-
expand, like with the lemon ash, it's bud grafting, so it takes longer to grow out, right? And to get enough to fill orders, you kind of have to do bud grafting, which takes longer.
Sure. Why are you changing the name?
Well, because all of the other citrus flavored ones have a name that sort of tells you what your type of flavor you're getting into. And so this one, I think a lot of people have agreed that Tangerine Dream would be an appropriate name for it.
Well, and
Okay.
maybe go into why it was named what it was.
Originally, the history with that particular variety is that it initially fruited in a very bad location, had a very small fruit. That I could imagine that it had an interesting flavor, but it was never. I was actually afraid that it was going to die. It was in so much shade that it was a small branch of a small tree, and so I grafted a scion from that onto a tree in the sun, and it just exploded. And so, but while it was on the other tree, I got a email from somebody in Germany, which I didn't realize people in Germany were watching mango videos. But he said that, his best friends were getting married and could we possibly name a mango after his best friends? And their last name was Hanschen. And so that's how it got its original name, but everybody is, well, not everybody, I guess, his friends probably don't want it changed, but that was many years ago. And so people seem to like the Tangerine Dream alternative. So it certainly is more descriptive and more.
I would say either
helpful.
Tangerine Dream or Tangerine Cream because I do think it's creamy. So.
Yeah, very nice.
Okay.
Anyway.
All right. So on this, a couple more questions about the lemonish. Somebody says, have you topped work or plan to top work more of your trees to lemonish to supply your customers fruit?
I did make another tree. I'm not sure. When you top work something, sometimes you lose a year of production, but it might be, well, it'll be fantastic lemon ash year next year, next in 2026. But we should have more fruit this year in that variety than we did last year.
Okay. And the last lemonish question is pre-orders are sold out. Do you plan on putting any more on sale anytime soon?
What we are going to do is fill the pre-orders in March, I believe. I'm not sure exactly when in March. It depends on, I want to get equivalent plants to distribute and got to make sure that that there's no midgets in the bunch. But that's going to be our first priority. And if we have more than the pre-orders, then those will go on sale, like at approximately the same time. It will probably be toward the end of March that if we have extras will go on sale, because it's going to be a fairly major project to distribute the things that have already been pre-ordered.
There was a pretty good pre-order.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's asking, can you have Chris give a detailed outlook on this upcoming mango season, including the current crops on her trees and future crops expected from unopened bloom, along with current disease?
You and Alex and Paul did a video specifically on that recently, right?
Well, the main thing is it's just a guess at this point.
Yeah.
Because I mean, fortunately, we have a second bloom on most of the trees, and unfortunately, most of our initial bloom didn't make it. Very little. There are a few varieties that I thought, wow, they really did well with that. One of the trees that I specifically remember that did great with the initial bloom and had a second bloom that did great is Marco. And
which is another one of your specialty varieties.
Yeah, that's one of the truly tropical varieties, and it did great. And so, but most of the trees, the varieties suffered with the first bloom, and now we're sort of guessing as far as how much fruit they will have. Of course, because last season was not a good season for anybody I know, the production was way lower than is typical. We are hoping for and sort of anticipating that this season will be better than last.
Okay. Another question says, well, can you have Chris give a breakdown of our current truly tropical original seedlings along with any new ones? Well, we already answered that. Do the mangoes taste better with the sunglasses on or without them? Somebody's asking, but okay, wait, let's see more questions.
I like.
Well, you see, it's a look though. You wouldn't recognize Chris if she didn't have the hat and sunglasses. So.
Well, it comes with blue eyes. You're more light sensitive if you have blue eyes, and so that's a big reason that
you'd mentioned Marco. Not a lot of people know about Marco. Do you want to kind of maybe refresh people's memory on flavor and productivity? Like it hangs on the tree very well. Squirrels don't like it very well. That kind of.
Yeah, it's been an amazing variety for me. It's the original tree right next to a fence. Squirrels are up and down that are running along the top rail of the fence all the time. We didn't get any squirrel damage on the Marco, and other trees did get it. And it just was an extremely productive, very delicious mango. So it was one that I was very happy that
and you've had that out for a little bit, right?
Yeah, that's been a few years that we've had that.
It hangs on the tree a really long time and doesn't over ripen too. So that's some other. Right. Chris doesn't like to brag as much as I want to hear her brag.
That's all right. Somebody's asking, how can I get a job like Shannon's?
Oh, I'm not paid. I'm not paid.
So free volunteer is the answer, everybody. Free volunteer.
Yeah. You can get a lot of unpaid jobs.
So another question is from Caleb. Will the seed of a grafted tree blend together with the rootstock tree? I mean, will the seed
is it seed or seam? Like the seam of the graft?
Said, would the seed of a grafted tree blend together with the rootstock of a tree? I don't understand that.
Well, the rootstock of the grafted tree will be different from what the seed is coming from, because it comes from the grafted portion. And so the seed from that grafted part, it depends. It could be exactly the same as the grafted, the fruit from the grafted portion, but it also could be a product of cross-pollination and you get a different fruit. So hopefully that answers some question along the way.
Okay. Somebody says, will they have a grafting class? I don't know if he's talking about at the Mango Festival or just in general on your farm, but we'll answer both. That's a good topic, actually, if we can have a class at the festival. But do you plan on having any grafting classes? I know you do videos, but do you have any classes coming up this summer or this spring
In
for?
spring and falls when we had done them in the past, right?
Yeah, and it's something that we like to do whenever we have time and energy. Of course, you have to do it at the appropriate time in the season because for like for instance, grafting mangoes, you can't graft them when they're working on producing fruit, when the trees are working on fruit. You have to wait until after the fruit is off of the tree and then including right into well, certainly late summer, you can still graft, usually. But it's a timing thing that is, sort of out of our control. All we have is, certain times that we have extra, opportunities to do something extra like that. It's really, grafting can be so fun. And so it's nice to be able to share, that, with other people. And we certainly have had a lot of people jump
It's
into
fun.
it. Yeah, jump into it
I
with both feet.
Yeah, I like doing the classes. They've been about, I guess, 8 to 10 people each. We did one canister grafting class that was actually pretty popular too. But it's a good 2 hours of me trying to get Chris to talk more and she trying to get me to talk less. And so
Very well. And you got great videos on that on your website as well. Okay, on your YouTube channel. Another question is from Irene, do mango trees need iron?
They need some iron. Most fertilizers and have some level of micronutrients and such. If you have well water, generally you have iron in your water. That's the rust. But there's are a lot of sources of iron. I mean, I know that there's some people who actually like put nails and such into the soil around the trees and such just to provide some of those minerals to them.
hopefully ones that will rust and make iron, not aluminum or
Okay. Somebody had a comment in the questions asking me, they said they have Kent seedlings. What nursery should I buy to start top work in my tree? Where can I get the best cuttings? Well, obviously, because I'm interviewing Chris, I'm going to say you got to go to Truly Tropical and get them. But Chris does, she does sell budwood, and I know and trust her budwood. So I definitely would recommend it, even if I wasn't interviewing her right now. But pretty much all of the people that I have on the show that do that have knowledge. So just look at the videos and try Chris first and see what she's got. And then if not, if she's out or doesn't have the variety you're looking for, definitely go to the other people I usually have on the show. For the people I don't have on the show, I can't speak about the quality or quantity or anything like that of what they do. The next question is,
Paul, if you don't mind,
go ahead, go right
I
ahead.
just wanted to remind them that that's not any time of year thing. If you want mango science, there are only specific times when they're good. You can go out and cut a piece of tip of a branch any time of year, but it doesn't mean it will be a successful graft. We wait until we actually see buds forming on those areas, the tips of the branches, and then we harvest that and sell it. And so it's just one of those things. If you want to be successful, definitely timing matters.
one of the things as a customer for scions that I really liked about Chris is she preps all of her scions. So when you get one, you know it's an active, you can see the bud growth, things like that. I've had success with ones that are just kind of cut that are naturally, starting to bud. But Chris does prep her scions, which I always had better luck with.
And maybe explain prepping briefly so people understand what that means.
Well, to prep a sign, you have to get part of the
You pull a
tree.
branch down.
Right, get part of the tree that is the right diameter and what you want to have something that is fairly new growth but not too new. And to prep it, what I do is I cut the leaves off, because when you cut leaves off of one of these branch tips, the plant's response to that situation is to form buds where the leaves were, just above where the leaf was. And when that happens, you have a very active area of the tip of the branch, and you can cut that off, and it gives you a much higher success, in my opinion, than not doing that. There's some people that just go and, cut off these places, and sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Like a few years back, I had somebody tell me that he's a very good grafter, that with the science that I sold him, he had like 98% success. And the science that he bought that were not prepped from, other people, he got about 50% take rate. So it can be quite dramatic.
Okay. Another question is, what do you think about Mascaraki mangoes and other mango varieties from Japan and China? I don't hear much about them.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know enough to have an opinion on that. Sorry.
Okay. Next question is, do you think it's possible to start a profitable mango farm from scratch in 2025 on unplanted land?
Well, there's certainly people trying it
Yeah.
because we get orders for big quantities of trees.
Yeah, the thing, I mean, South Florida is a great place to grow mangoes. And so, I think everybody who has the slightest interest in mangoes should at least, be growing mangoes for their own consumption. As far as should people get into the business, I think that there's still a lot of demand because to average person, the mango experiences that they've had have been buying mangoes at grocery stores, which not the finest mangoes in the world for sure. They're usually the variety is questionable, and then the individual fruit are probably picked too young, and so you don't really have an appreciation for what a good mango tastes like. And so I think that there's a lot of people out there that fit that description, and once they taste a good mango, they're going to be hooked. And so there's a lot, I think, of potential for growing the mango industry in Florida.
Just from my observations and working with Chris and answering phone calls and stuff, I feel like that if you were going to go that direction, that making sure you had an option for shipping fruit effectively seems to be kind of one of the things that, if not, you're isolating your customer base to, Florida and the southern Florida area where people can drive to it. We get a lot of calls for people asking for shipping of fruit.
Okay. Next question is, which are Julie's favorite fibrous mangoes?
Julie. Who's Julie?
I guess the question is, Julie mango, I guess the seedlings of
It
them.
has
Oh, which
little-
of all the Julie varieties?
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
okay.
Dwarf one.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
thinking.
You don't
we're
know
talking-
Julie? We were just hanging out with her last
A
week.
great gal. Yeah, my goodness. You can really start quite a discussion with people, especially from Jamaica, if you start discussing all sorts of Julie options. Because if you grew up in certain areas and you're used to the Julie mango, that is the one that you want. But Juliet is a very fine mango, and the people, for instance, from Jamaica who come for a Julie, and we're out of Julie, but Juliet is a slightly later variety. They're very happy with Juliet. They'll try it because it's the only thing available, or one of the only things available at that time that sort of fits their need. But then after they try it, they like sometimes reluctantly admit that they might like it better than actual Julie. And then we also have Super Julie, which is, you cannot taste. I mean, I had somebody tasting mangoes here that was, like had tasted a lot. He tasted Super Julie and he said, oh, that, doesn't taste at all like Julie. And so I made him do a blind taste test, and he couldn't tell the difference. So it's visually very different from Julie, but it's tastes extremely similar to it. So there's a lot of options there in Julie land, and because it's been such a popular fruit with a lot of the customers, people try to develop especially a variety that would have all the Julie flavors, just a bigger fruit. So far, that really hasn't come to pass. I mean, I guess Super Julie is a little bit larger than regular Julie, but there's no enormous Julie that I know of out there.
Well, what
As far
what
as the part of the question about fiber, you tell me, my observations are that Juliet seems to have the least amount of fiber between Juliet, and Super Julie.
Yeah, I mean, and none of the, I don't find the fiber in any of them objectionable.
Me either, yeah.
But the Juliet is a cross between Julie and Gary is a fiberless sweet mango. And so you get, some of that in with the Juliet. So it's, and a little bit later season also.
They're both excellent, all three of those. Okay, next question is, if my blooming trees are flushing new growth at the same time and I decided to break the new growth off, will the tree rebloom?
He has the blooming tree, and he's wondering about if the new growth is going to be a problem. Is that?
He says, if my blooming trees are flushing new growth and at the same time, and I decide to break the new growth off, will the tree rebloom? So I guess he has old bloom and then your new bloom's coming out. If he breaks the new bloom that's coming out, will it rebloom again?
It really depends. We've done a little experiment with one of our trees, starting in the summer, and basically trimmed the same tree in different ways, and it does stagger the flowering. Certain parts of the tree will flower at different times. If you have a new growth, and I mean, it sounded like in the beginning you were talking about this person having new growth on the tree and flowers, and so the new growth, of course, takes more energy from the tree. Once the leaves are mature, then it's a source of energy. But when they're young, it's like babies; they take a lot of energy, so that could be a good strategy if you have new growth and you want the energy to go to making fruit. Then that you might want to remove that.
Okay. Another question is, would it be recommended to add gypsum and culture sulfur right now that trees are holding small fruit?
Well, gypsum you can put down any time of year. Our soil, and I use that term loosely, it's pretty much just sand here. And, of course, every time we trim the trees, we grind up the trimmings and put it out into the grove. So there is organic matter in, some level of organic matter. But it's
I mean, gypsum, I guess the why of gypsum a little bit to me is because your soil is so sandy, you have to supplement with gypsum, but you can do it any time because it's just kind of a natural element, right?
We do that several times a year, but the thing, about, we have sand, and a lot of times people think sand has calcium in it, and it doesn't. And so, the gypsum is good for the health of the trees, the quality of the fruit, all sorts of things. And so we put gypsum down around every tree, usually a couple times a year. And it's not like nitrogen, which, nitrogen you don't want to overdo on because it can really affect the health of the tree and definitely the flavor of the fruit. But putting calcium down usually increases the quality of the fruit, the health of the tree, and all sorts of things. So we're definitely big believers in the putting gypsum down.
So just so everyone knows, gypsum is a brand of calcium, right?
Yeah,
It makes calcium
sulfate, right?
Yeah, it makes calcium available to the tree. Maybe the type of, like, your soil needs it, not all soils need it.
Yeah,
right?
for instance, the main place I think that doesn't need it is Homestead. There's just so much shell rock down there and such. I don't think they need it, but I'm not sure. I've never grown anything down there, but I do know that we are on this ancient sand ridge, and the sand that we have here actually originated in what is now like North Carolina and West Virginia and stuff. It used to be the Appalachian mountains were huge, and as they weathered, all the weather stuff came down to Florida, and that's the white sand and everything, and that is granite, and granite doesn't have calcium as far as I know.
Okay. And what about someone? They also asked about sulfur. Sulfur right now that they're holding small fruit would.
But that's spraying sulfur. That's
Well, no, there's two
or
different
amendment.
things.
Okay, I
Yeah.
didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, the sulfur, as a spray, we use that earlier in the season when like you have cool weather that is humid but not rain. And that's just breeding grounds for powdery mildew. Powdery mildew gets along fine in other situations, but that's sort of the classic one that so we try to spray the blooms as much as possible with sulfur. But then there's another kind of sulfur. I mean, that's the sprayable sulfur. The other sulfur is actually 90% sulfur and 10% type of clay. And that is good if you have soil that is too alkaline, because that will make it a little bit more balanced as far as the pH goes.
Okay. Now I know you're saying these that if people have the soil, should people be getting their soil tested? Is it dangerous to put too much of this stuff down?
Well, it is lovely to get your soil tested, and also leaf samples. If you can send leaf samples in, that can be very helpful in determining what what your tree might need. Both of those tests are relatively inexpensive, especially if you like have a fairly large tree. If you have a small tree, you might just think, well, I don't want to pay as much for the test as I did for the tree or whatever. But if you have a few trees, it's definitely worthwhile to see what's going on.
But if people put this stuff down, the gypsum and the sulfur, and they put too much, or if they don't need it and they put it down, can it harm their trees or not really? They're just wasting money.
I don't think that the gypsum has any negative effect. I guess if you like put a truckload on your tree, that would be another thing. But that doesn't seem to be a risk for us. As I was recently talking to Har about gypsum, and he relayed that he has a huge black sapote tree, and it was not producing anything. And he put a bunch of gypsum down around it, and he got a great crop.
Yeah, that's Har that she's talking about. Actually thought of one of your videos recently, Paul. We were over at Har's and he shared with us a black sapote that was this big.
Wow. Wow.
He sliced it and we each got a slice and there was tons left.
And we were full.
Yeah. And it was the
Wow.
variety that you said that you would like the best. I mispronounced it.
Reineke.
Yeah, it's an enormous tree. And that was hands down the biggest black sapote fruit I have ever seen in my life. It was super tasty.
What did you
too.
both think of the taste?
Excellent.
Yeah, it was definitely excellent.
I have never met a black sapote that I haven't liked.
Yeah, that's one of Chris's favorites. Yeah.
But
I got my new bumper stickers that I want to come out with, say black sapote matters.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah.
But the question about the sulfur, and I'm just learning this, so I'm learning. It sounds like if it's changing the pH of your soil, that overusing sulfur could definitely be a bad thing.
Yes, it's that would be a good thing to get your soil tested first. If you have a lot of mulch, well, don't put the mulch right next to the trunk of the tree for sure. But a lot of people use mulch, just around their landscape and such, and that of course provides some acid to the soil, and so in that case you might not need to put sulfur down. But best thing is to just get your soil tested. If you have just plain sand like we do here, you probably don't even need to use to get your soil tested, because if it's plain sand,
It's sand.
It's sand.
Yeah, about a year ago when I bought my property, I found a place, did some research online, found a place. It cost me $18 to get a very detailed soil test, and it gave me my own web page asked me what I was growing, made recommendations for modifications, was able to call and talk to the owner. I mean, I have no relation to the place, but it was mysoiltest.com, and he was great, and it was $18. I took 5 samples around the property, mixed them together, sent them in. 24 hours later, I have a personalized web page. So I have no relation to this.
What was that
page.
website?
It was mysoiltest.com. I found it
Okay.
on a Bob Vila post. Bob Vila recommended it, and you can't trust Bob Vila. Who can you trust?
Okay.
But in general, it was very inexpensive and comprehensive to have it tested. I mean, $18 for a soil test,
Sure.
$50 for a bag of fertilizer, you
Sure.
know, that you may not
So-
need.
Now with the gypsum, is there other types of calcium people could use, or is that the brand that is recommended?
Drywall?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, Shannon sort of touched on a interesting thing. Drywall is made out of gypsum, and in fact, you might remember this, Paul, if you're old enough, that years ago there was sort of a semi-scandal where a lot of the drywall coming in from, I believe, China, was not usable. People were building houses and putting it up, and the residents were becoming sick. And that was, I mean, it wasn't like a terrible sickness, but they were not feeling well. And it was a case of sulfur, where they got the gypsum from was also a place where sulfur was. And so they were making drywall out of sulfur tainted gypsum. And so anyway, that they were ripping out this drywall from all these new houses and such. And but so they had a big pile, a huge accumulation of these pieces of drywall that had sulfur in them. And the farmers heard about this, and they're like, "We'll take that off your hands for free." And so they used it to supplement their soils and such, and they were happy as a clam. And of course, the people that had to dispose of it were happy too. So
if you have a home project, you got a little leftover
uh-huh.
drywall.
yeah,
It's clean, fresh drywall. Nothing tainted it, but then
yeah,
So,
throw it
so it'd
out.
be safe to use that drywall from China. That probably doesn't sound. I mean, that would have been
Well,
fine.
no,
it was sulfur.
Yeah, it was just sulfur and,
Got you,
and,
got
and
it.
calcium. So that was fine. But yeah, I guess Shannon's point seems to be if you were, replacing
Yeah.
drywall in your home and you had scrap pieces,
Throw it under your
yeah,
tree.
put them
Break
around
them
the
up,
tree,
and
yeah.
yeah.
All right. So we got about a half hour left, everybody, 25 minutes. So if that's good with you all, that's good with you. Okay. And seeing how many of you are online, we're excited. We'll come do this again in the daytime because this is wonderful. So next question is somebody's asking, is Truly Tropical going to be at the Manatee County Raft Fruit Council this year?
Think so. We're sort of stretched a little bit thin. We've been very busy here at the farm. People not, of course, are waiting for mango season when we have a lot of fruit. But in the meantime, they're buying trees to plant themselves. And then, of course, we're going to be participating in the Mango Fest. And so that will be taking a lot of our energies to prepare for that. So I'm hoping that we get people from all over the state and beyond to come to that Mango Fest June 29th, because that's going to be a great event.
Last year was a little bit of an exception. I lived on that coast, and the event was 20 minutes from my house. And so I packed everything up and brought it over last year. So it was a little bit more doable that time as well. So
Okay. Next question is, will a lemon zest grow slower in a container if I'm not in Florida?
And generally, things grow more slowly in containers. It sort of depends on, the stage of growth of the plant that's in the container and, how much you're feeding it and watering it and that kind of thing. But it's, I'm sort of can't wait to get things into the ground because once they get established, which, takes more attention for the first couple of weeks, not so much for the next few weeks after that. But after that, they can pretty much be on their own. And so it's nice to have a plant that you don't have to worry about all the time. And when they're in the ground, at least here, I mean, I understand that not everybody has a place for trees in the ground. But when you can put them in the ground, I think it's a better situation for the tree. We can have a large root system, and it's certainly better for me because I don't have to pay as much attention to them.
Yeah,
Okay.
as far as using it as a container culture, though, I don't know if I would recommend personally lemon zest as a container culture example. At least my personal experience, I just get a lemon ash. It has better habits anyway. So
All right. Somebody
one
just
thing,
go ahead. Go ahead.
Paul, one thing that just reminded me of is a few years back, I had somebody come and buy 3 of the same variety of mango. I can't remember which variety it was, but they're in 3-gallon pots. And he said he was buying them for his brother. And after I talked to him a little bit further, brother lived in Amsterdam, and he was going to grow these mangoes. He knew all about mangoes. It's not like he was, novice or anything. But he was bound and determined he was going to get good mangoes in Amsterdam, and I'm sure that grow lights were involved. But
that you could easily find in Amsterdam.
That's just one of those things that once people get hooked on mangoes, it's like
They can be grown.
Yeah, you can't really substitute anything else, and so they will go to great lengths. Yeah, I had a customer who had who ordered plants, and she lived in North Carolina. And I like, yeah, that they don't really grow there. And she's like, I have a greenhouse just for the mangoes.
So I guess the message is you can make anything grow depending on how determined you are.
Yes. All right. Somebody gets a super chat question, and they ask when are the Monty and Lemonish trees going to be ready? I guess they joined us late. Thank you for the super chat, but we discussed that earlier. When are the Monty and Lemonish trees going to be ready? We kind of discussed it, but
yeah, well, I think in sometime in March, the pre-orders for Lemon Ash will be ready. Thinking Monty will be fairly similar, maybe a little bit later than that. We will, anybody who has pre-ordered those things, we will notify you as soon as they are ready. And we won't really know what we have available for other sales until after we distribute what we've already pre-sold.
okay. Does Chris have adequate stock of azomite, Sol Ping Mag, and no nitrogen fertilizer?
No, Chris does not have that. We are working on getting a plant to custom make our zero nitrogen fertilizer. It's not yet in the works. I mean, it's just in the sort of the investigation stage. And so
we did have a source and we were selling it for a while, but it became hard to access and,
Yeah.
and ship. And
yeah,
Okay.
it's the delivery things, but we should have that. And as far as azomite, it depends on how much demand there is for that, because it is a rather expensive uh, thing product to ship. And so I'd like to be able to order at least a pallet and hopefully 2 pallets, and so that the transportation cost doesn't jack up the price too much.
Okay. Is Monty considered an Indo-Chinese hybrid flavor?
It is a hybrid flavor, yeah.
Okay.
one of our volunteers, Lawrence, it was his favorite mango last year, just for a little plug there.
Okay. Somebody says, I have 3 in-ground grafted finger lime trees. I only had 2 buds last year and 2 fruits. This year, nothing. They all look lush and healthy. What am I doing wrong in zone 9?
I know about finger lime, so
that might be Zane. Yeah, you might have to talk to Zane about the finger lime. One of the things about Chris is truly tropical. Citrus is subtropical. She doesn't grow citrus. So
Okay. Okay. Julian's asking, Julian, white weevil on my 3-gallon newly planted mat snow. Any recommendations?
Smash them.
Okay.
Crush them.
What?
Crush them.
Crush them.
squish them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the fastest way to get rid of them. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of icky, but it is very effective.
Okay. Next question is, do you have any of the Zills 4026 or any of the unnamed varieties that are 4026
4026,
specifically? Do you have that
4017.
available? Yeah, there's 4017 and those.
I have some unnamed varieties, but I don't have those.
Okay. So Chris has two different citrus varieties, or is it the lemon zest the same as the one you were saying? Yeah, they're two different ones.
Lemon
Yeah.
ash and then hench.
Okay.
They,
Okay. Were you going to say something, Chris?
well, I was going to just sort of go back to the, like those, both of those varieties, like the grandmother of them was the lemon meringue coco flay. And so there've been several citrus flavored mangoes like that, like in that same family. And so there's, I wouldn't say no to any of them, but there's some that have more pluses than others. And so that's sort of the main thing, main difference besides taste is that, some of them are more disease prone, like lemon zest, that some parts of the crop really get hammered some years. And, and so that's a negative, but then at least last year I got some good fruit too. So, they all sort of have their quirks.
Okay. Somebody, Shannon's saying, I accidentally bought Growers Alley fungicide. The active ingredient is 1% citric acid. Is this safe and or effective for mangoes?
It seemed like 1% citric acid is going to make much difference. What do you think, Shannon?
That doesn't sound like it. I mean, I would almost go to the webpage for the producer and try to see if they have any precautions for certain varieties of fruits, but it doesn't sound like it would be anything to be a problem.
Okay. Josh is asking, how much quicker can you get a new seedling to fruit if you take budwood from it and graft it onto a large mature tree? Question mark. And then it says, will that help the fruit for the first time quicker?
Yes, it definitely will help. Because you got those plant hormones going around in the base tree, the older tree. So yeah, that is a viable strategy for getting fruit quicker.
I have one I grafted about 6 months ago to a medium-sized Phoenix tree that's trying to produce fruit right now. Back to your conversation with Alex, though, probably wouldn't let that fruit hold the first season unless he said was at least about an inch, well-established graft. I do watch your other videos, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you. Uh, my cherry tree is flowering, but few mangoes. Do you think because of the cold we had, I think it's because of the cold weather we had in South Florida?
Yeah, I mean, the carry has recently been sort of less reliable for me than it was earlier on in our history. It sounds a little pretentious, but anyway, like last season, of course, was not a great mango season. We had so few carry fruit, and this season, we will have more than very few, but it's really hard with that particular variety. It seems like they're a little bit moody sometimes.
I help answer the phone sometimes. We've actually had a couple of callers this year say that their carries for the first time have had a lot of male flowers. Is there anything, and is that part of what you're experiencing when you say lack of productivity or just
Yeah, I'm sure that's part
Yeah.
of the issue.
Yeah.
so hope
Would
for
you,
that second bloom?
hopefully, yeah. Would you recommend a foliar spray for mangoes like citrus nutritional spray?
Yeah, foliar spray is very good. Uh, there's really pretty much no downside to it that I know of. I'm sure there's downside somewhere. But there's products like, for instance, kelp grow, and those nutrients can be absorbed by the leaves more efficiently than through the roots, because basically the product doesn't have like all the soil to go into. It's just going onto the tree, and so that can be helpful.
Okay. What do you think of Carla mango? And they said, how do you think it would do inland in a humid climate?
So now you've hit one of Chris's
Yes.
batons. Chris likes Carla a lot.
Yeah,
and it's full of nutrition.
Carl is a very nice mango. It's one that for some reason didn't get a lot of promotion and stuff, but it is a very nice mango. I taste a lot of orange in the flavor. And it is sort of the beginning of the late season as far as its season to fruit. It's a fairly large fruit. It's just there's a lot of things going for it.
Yeah, we had a lot of people that would try a Carla not knowing what it was at the gate and then come back and ask for it, especially that time of year.
So they were asking, do you think it would grow in inland in a humid climate well?
Yeah, that's the issue that I don't really know about because I have only the experience here and I'm 1 mile from the ocean. And so it's with those kinds of situations, what you could possibly do is try to graft one branch on an existing tree and see how it does. Yeah, I really don't know in that climate how it might react.
Okay. Um, let's see. Alex was saying that he sprays copper on his open bloom and he hasn't noticed a drop in production. Uh,
So that was, yeah, that
what's
was,
your opinion about that?
yeah, his recent video, he said that I know it's a reputation, but I spray on open bloom. And I was like,
Yeah.
clasping pearls.
Yeah, we don't do that. At least we don't intentionally do it. You certainly, when you're spraying a tree, there's almost always different stages of bloom and fruit development. And so, if you're thinking you're going to be spraying young fruit with copper, it could very well end up on bloom also. It's just that we don't intentionally try to spray the young fruit with copper.
Why? Because have you noticed a reduction in production when you have?
I haven't kept track of how spray has
Or
been.
why don't you do it?
Well, Hard does the spraying, and that's always been kind of his practice, I think, right?
Yeah, and
Okay.
yeah, he's
It seems like just back to historical reputation type thing.
Okay. Okay. Do you guys have the Giselle mango there?
I haven't, I do not, it's not big enough to produce yet, so it's going to be a couple years before we have Giselle mangoes for sale.
Okay. So I'm gonna go through the questions selectively now so we can get them in the last 10 minutes here. But if you don't get your question answered, please repost the question in the comments below the video, and I or Chris can come back and answer them anytime. So please keep that in mind. The next question: if a mango tree hasn't been trimmed for years, can it be trimmed now? And can I expect to produce at 15, can I expect it to produce?
After a major pruning, like if something is really tall and you don't want it really tall, uh, it can be a few years of production that you basically give up because there's just so much energy that is in that tree, even though you cut off, most of its top. And so, uh, one thing that sometimes people will do, I think it sometimes works, is if you don't trim everything at once. You might selectively trim some branches back and hopefully the other branches will hold fruit. And then after the places that you trim back severely start having mature, branches, then that part will take over and you can cut back the other stuff that was producing the previous year or 2 years ago or whatever.
What's your recommendation to safely cut back a mango tree when pruning? 20%, 25%? What number do you think
Third.
best?
Yeah, I use different strategies for different trees, and it somewhat related to the size of the tree. And if there's something that really needs to come down, like it's Valencia Pride Big kind of thing, and I don't want to have too much of an issue picking the fruit, then I will sometimes really cut those trees way back. In fact, I top worked two trees, cutting them way back, and that in that situation, I know that I will lose 1 year of production. But otherwise, I try to selectively trim branches. And of course, most of the energy goes to the centermost branch that's going straight up. And so if you want to control the size of the tree, and that's really the place I start, is to cut the most vigorous branch down, and that also helps open the inside of the tree to more light, and then you get fruit production in the newly exposed area also.
Okay. Somebody, Jupiter Mojo says lots of anthracnose this year. Tried a copper a couple of times a few weeks back, and now I just tried using Manicuzbib.
Easy for you to say.
Any other ideas, or is this year a loss because of the cold and rain?
Yeah, it's a tough year, and especially in certain areas. It's I am really not aware of products that would to suggest.
Yeah, I mean, I think Alex touched on one or two in his video as well, but I think Har basically uses copper here, right?
Yeah, that's predominantly the thing that he uses, but yeah, there's some other stuff that sometimes is effective, but I really can't speak with
Sure.
authority on that.
Is there an alternative tasting mango to the East Indian in Florida?
Well, one of my very fervent East Indian customers, uh, his two favorite mangoes, East Indian and Rosa, which surprised me, but he really likes that. I think that the flavor without the fiber, closest thing might be the Seminole. That's a Walter Zill variety.
Variety that's not super well known.
Yeah.
Okay. Somebody's asking when will the tickets be going on sale for the mango event, and stay tuned for more details and ticket sales to open up soon, but it will not be limited this year like it has been in the past last year because we have enough space, but we'll announce it. Chris and I and everyone else will announce it as soon as they're available. Uh, Somebody's asking, Chris, do you consider your mangoes organically grown?
Yes,
Yes, the answer
absolutely.
is yes. Okay. Uh, I have a 5-gallon air layered Alfonso, and it looks like it got root rot. Can it be saved, and what can I do?
Hmm.
I mean, with the comment I made about growing lemon zest in pot culture, the problem I've had with three of them is root rot. They weren't air layered, but the only one I was able to save was I immediately changed the potting soil to something that was at least 30% sand. I stopped watering and I cut back the top a little bit. But my experience personally, I mean, Chris has much more experience than I do, but my personal experience with root rot is when it starts taking, you really got to act quickly if you want to try to save that tree.
And drastically.
And drastic to save that tree. The fact that it's air layered, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've seen air layers that have an extremely good root system. I don't think that would make a difference as far as how you would treat it. Your suggestion is probably as good as any as far as changing the soil to something that's sandy, drains well, and cutting off the affected parts.
Yeah.
All right, let's take 3 more questions before we end here today. Does Chris know if it's possible to successfully grow mangoes in the Northern Keys? It says,
Yeah, they definitely do grow.
It would just be
mangoes, yeah.
varieties that tend to bloom without the cold stress,
Well,
right?
but also ones that can tolerate salt.
Oh, salt, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, the Grimmel property is down in the Keys, and he grew all sorts of tropical fruit there. They have mango trees around in the Keys. So, of course, I haven't yet tried to grow them there. But it seems like it should be a fine place as long as, the main thing that even we have to deal with sometimes. And as I mentioned before, I'm a mile as the crow flies from the beach, is that if we have a very strong east wind, get salt damage on our trees. And so what I recommend to people who are in a similar situation is that if you have had a lot of east wind, blowing in the salt from the ocean, to whenever you can wash off your leaves with just the hose. And that way you can minimize the amount of salt that is just lingering on the leaves.
Thinking about the salt in the ground, I watched some growers of avocados in California, and one thing they do to try to mitigate some of the salt in the soil is plant on a berm and make sure they're watering with fresh water. I don't know if that would help a great deal with mangoes, but maybe building a little bit on a berm so they're not soaking or saturated in salt.
Yeah, that's a good point, because the keys, for the most part, are very few feet above sea level. And so if you can bring in soil that it has not been there for ages, I mean, like as anybody in South Florida knows, whenever there's a hurricane that goes, like even near the Keys, a lot of that land is underwater, under salt water. And of course, it's not like all of those salt after the, storm is over, runs back into the ocean. You're stuck with that salt in the sand. And so if you can put some good soil on top of that, it seems like it would benefit the trees.
All right. Another question is your mango hedge. How's that coming along this year? Is it flowering? And how far
Yeah.
apart did you plant those trees in the
Well, you got
hedge?
some crazy growth going over here in the new hedge, don't you?
Yeah.
I haven't even asked you what you're thinking over here.
Yeah, I'm always trying out new stuff, but the mango hedge that we covered in a video ages ago,
Yeah.
it seems to be doing very well. I believe that those trees are about 8 feet apart, and there's a lot of bloom on them right now.
But it's
There is a
critical
lot of
the
bloom.
selection of varieties that are slower growing, right?
Not
Not
necessarily.
necessarily. Okay.
No, yeah, I'd love to come
helps.
back and do an update on that because I'm curious myself on how that looks. That's great. Okay. And the last question of the day, and everybody, again, if you didn't get your question answered, please cut and paste it below into the comments, and maybe Chris will go back and answer them, or I'll be able to, or we could do it in the next Q&A. We could ask her as well. So let's see. I saw a question here about pruning trees. Let's see. So many questions. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, by the way. And was this a good time for you if we did it again at this time? Uh, let's see.
Kind of a lunch hour thing, kind of a weekday lunch hour thing.
Which mango variety can tolerate triple-digit heat?
Ooh, well, I'm
We always
glad
get the opposite question.
I'm glad we don't have to deal with triple digit heat. I, think that a lot of it,
I can speculate while you're
well,
thinking.
I mean, I would assume that Indian varieties can tolerate more heat than Southeast Asian, just as a general category, because it gets darn hot in India. And so that would be one thing.
My thought would be one that has a smaller clumping growth habit where the leaves protect the tree more, like a pickering, or I don't even, maybe a Ceci love or something, where you've got small distance between branching and you've got a lot of cover. So maybe it kind of covers a little bit.
Yeah, I would think that the way you trim a tree is going to be extra important if you're into triple digits. And you would not want to trim the whole tree at the same time, and basically, if you're getting a lot of sun from the south, like in coming into summer and such, that you might want to not trim the south side until,
or maybe whitewash parts of the branches and trunk.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it. Of helping. They do that a lot in California, and I believe Arizona, where they will paint white paint just because white keeps things cooler.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of strategies, but still you have triple digits.
You might maybe partial a little more shade than normal, or
well, if you are able to plant a tree that blocks some of the sun, that would probably be helpful. And then every home has little microclimates and such, and there might be a place that doesn't get quite as hot as the rest of the property. It's just a matter of trying to figure out what the best situation for your particular situation.
you'd almost want to, in my mind, again, correct me if I'm wrong, you'd want to acclimate a smaller tree to that environment and have it grow in that environment rather than the shock of growing in a different environment than planting it as a bigger tree. And
Yeah,
or
I mean, I mean, sort of building on what you just said, you could have a tree in a pot, put it in some place in your property that is not as harsh, and then gradually move it out in the pot.
sure,
And then,
stages.
yeah, and then it's more adjusted to the heat and then put it in the ground. But
Yeah,
yeah,
all great tips and suggestions. And I would say is maybe I know in the United States, Arizona's the major place where we get triple digits and maybe Vegas. But if you find somebody there who happens to be growing mango trees, maybe consult with them and see how it's been, if they've been doing it long term. And I don't know the weather in other parts of the world, but I'm sure there are some parts of India where it gets that hot. Maybe see what they've been growing there traditionally, see if that makes a difference. And of course, all the tips and suggestions that uh, were given here just now is things to
The
try to help.
only thought that I had on that is where you don't typically mulch a mango tree after it gets fully developed, maybe put a little more mulch to protect the root from that heat.
yeah, I mean, that would be good, but of course not right up
Not
against
against the
trunk.
tree, yeah.
But yeah, having that kind of organic matter it would certainly cool the sand in that area. So that would be another thing to do.
Yeah, or throw some ice cubes there once a day or something. Yeah. Actually, so anyway, thank you, Chris, for taking the time out to come on here in the midday here, and also to you, Shannon. And we look forward if you'd be open to do it again when we both have more time. But thank you for doing this today here. And I'm going to put your links below in the description. And we're going to be doing a lot more videos together about the upcoming Mango Festival. Before we end here at the moment, is there anything you'd like to say to the audience? We have up to 100 people on today live. So thank you, everybody, for joining us live.
It's great. Well, I'm really glad that there's so many people who've discovered mangoes because, it is the best fruit. And I hope that everybody who can grow a mango tree or 50 at their place does, because, it's something that just keeps on giving. It's in South Florida. It's minimal amount of effort to keep them healthy, and it just produces all sorts of good things for you.
The one thing I would say is because, we're generally all year round only open on Saturdays, and that can be a challenge for some folks. But it made me think of it as today, there was a couple that got off of a cruise ship in Miami and were driving to Georgia, and they stopped on the way and picked up a 15-gallon mango tree to take home with them. If you
In
are,
Georgia.
yeah, she knows. I told her what she has to do. But if you are wanting to get a tree from Chris, I help answer the phones, and I or Chris, because somebody can meet you at the gate and sell you a mango tree when we're not open. So don't feel that you just have to get in that 4-hour window on Saturdays. We can always make arrangements to get you a tree. And Chris has got some really nice, especially really large trees right now.
And I want to say on that note, on your website, mangoplace.com, you have a list of the current trees, what's available. And
You have to kind of hunt for it a little bit in my mind. You have to go to the facts page and then scroll down.
Yeah, the mangoplace.com is our website, and you go to FAQ, and it's under, the frequently asked questions. We do have those inventories. But even if you see the perfect plant on the inventory, send us an email or call us, because sometimes we already sold it and we didn't adjust the inventory yet.
got you. And I also want to tell people, Chris also sells fruit when in season. She sells fruit, so she has those at her stand as well. Not only trees, but she has fruit, not just mangoes, by the way. She has black sapote, star fruit, all throughout the season, whatever's available. She has that. So she announces that on her YouTube channel once a week. The night before, what they're going to have the next day.
Well,
She
one
puts that
thing,
on
Paul,
her
is
website.
we had Lula avocados this past weekend. Where were you? We
Yeah.
still have Lula on the tree.
Wow. That's great. I actually bought a Ronnie avocado tree from you, and it's loaded with avocados right now.
Great.
Yeah. But anyway, thank you both so much, and thank you everybody for watching. And we'll be back again. Continue to put your comments or questions below and share this video. We covered a lot, and we'll do more Q&As with Chris and Shannon. Until then, everybody, thank you. Have a great day and keep growing.
Take care.
Okay. We're off. Thank you so much for your time. And if we could plan it again, I gotta get running that myself. But if we could plan it again.